Hey everybody, I'm back once again and we're going to be doing another little breakdown video. This time, instead of showing you kind of a cool defense that worked out, like in the case of X6 in the previous video, this one is a kind of big mistake that Gigantti made when playing Misfits. This was the first time they played Eichenwald because for whatever reason they were allowed to play it twice. So this is the first time they played Eichenwald in the grand finals of the EU side of the Overwatch Contender Season 1. And this was a mistake that Gigantti made, and it was a timing error. And that error in timing ended up costing them pretty big, and it put them on the back foot for pretty much the rest of the map. So we'll play it through one time before we go back and kind of break it down. So we see here, Misfits had already kind of wasted a couple minutes. Not wasted, but, you know, Gigantti had held them a couple of times because they were playing this, you know, Reinhardt Zarya, which is, you know, a little bit tougher to break. And then that thing there where Swoosh hits Fraggy off to the side so he misses the Earthshatter was really big. So then after that Earthshatter goes down, there's no Graviton Surge, so then this comp's going to have a hard time dealing with the dive from Misfits. And eventually the dive from Misfits will be successful, and they take the point. So Gigantti, though, knows that going into the second stage of Eichenwald, you don't want to be playing Reinhardt Zarya. So Fraggy switches to Winston, and they keep the Zarya and Zappas, which is fine. He's at 70% on Graviton Surge, so, you know, you might as well get a grab off, right? So, but Fraggy on the Winston is pretty crucial here because the mobility here in the second stage. And what Gigantti does here is they go for this is becoming an increasingly popular tactic, and they go for this stall here. So he jumps under the payload, you know, and it prevents it. And normally teams fought on the other side of this door here. And what ends up happening here is this fight does not go well for Gigantti. They lose, you know, Shaz really early, which is rare. Shaz hasn't been dying early very often. But Fraggy gets split up, you know, Tivik kills him. And they basically end up being able to snowball the fight. So now I'm going to up it and we'll watch. We'll do 1.5 speed, just to see what happens here. So basically, Misfits are then able to push up, and they are able to kind of establish control here. So we see Tivik uses the tire, and the threat of the tire, Gigantti is kind of backing up, right? He throws it in, you can see they're kind of hiding from it. A pulse bomb even goes down from Logix there. He does die for that. But basically what's happening here is we see the fight is now happening right in front of the castle, while the payload is moving this entire time. And I believe Gigantti ends up winning this fight, actually, if I remember correctly. But the progress that Misfits makes here is such a big deal, because they're able to get through this first... Oh, whoops. They're able to get through underneath this choke point right here, right? They're able to get the payload through there, essentially for free. And it's because of that timing error we talked about before. So, to be able to explain this in better detail, I'm going to go into game. So this is, you know, where the payload starts, right? And what Gigantti tried to do, essentially, was they threw their Winston over the top of this, right? And he landed on the payload right in front of the door. And the idea is that you can get a free contest if you contest right in front of this door. There's essentially no chance that you actually win or actually hold right in front of this door. It's just incredibly unlikely because the attackers spawn right there. So the attackers are incredibly close to holding this, as well as the defenders have nowhere really to go once they're in this area. Backing up and retreating through this hall or this hall over here, they're very narrow, so it's hard to do. So pretty much you end up losing this fight 100% of the time, eventually. You may win the initial engagement, but you'll eventually get defeated here. But the idea is that you take this fight and you stall time. And even though you're going to lose it, this door, I believe, is 7 to 7.5 seconds, somewhere in there, to open. And what that 7.5 seconds lets you do is, well, it wastes a lot of the time that you were dead, right? When your team goes and you take the fight and you're dead for 10 seconds, 7 of that, again, gets eaten up just by this door opening. So the payload makes no progress for the majority of the time you are dead. And then what happens is you can spawn, and then the defenders can still get a here on the castle, right? And especially because the comp that Gigantti had, they have a soldier, right? So they want to set up on this castle here, right? And then, you know, you can fire down, and then you can take a fight in this area of the streets, this first section kind of here, before you get to this choke point, and then you still have time to get a second fight in here. So it gives you more time to stall. So, now that we're done with that, you can see what I mean. We will go back to this engagement right here. And what we see happened is they win this fight, right? Misfits does. Gigantti makes the switch. So Fraggy is now on Winston. Move the payload forward. All right. So, and they gave me a really good camera shot of this, which is really nice. So watch very carefully this meter right here, where it shows you the progress of the payload, right? It stops at 21 something. That's when this payload happens to hit the door here. But what happens is that it hits the 21.51, and now Fraggy has landed on the payload. So he's hit the payload after it already hit the 21.51, and despite the fact that he is contesting the payload, the door is still opening, we can see. And as this fight goes on, the door is still opening, despite the fact that the entire time the payload is contested. So Gigantti makes the mistake of showing up just like seriously like a quarter second too late. If they land that quarter second earlier, they take this fight, they might still lose it, and that's fine. You're able to lose this fight. But because what happens is they lose this fight, but because the door is already open, the progress of the payload is not hindered. Because right now, as the payload is moving up, we see it's about 23 meters now. It's making a little bit of progress. Right now, normally the door would only be opening, so the payload's not progressing, and your team is starting to respawn. And especially because Linkser has attack visor, and you have a graviton surge, you really want to have the high ground there, because you're hoping you can, maybe the Zarya can jump down and get a good grab, and Linkser wants to be on the high ground to get his attack visor off. But instead, they're kind of forced to fight in this area, right? And they're held back for so long. And as this fight kind of emerges, we see the crucial thing here is that the payload is through this choke point, and Zope is right here. And he's firing into this fight, actually. And I believe his Harmony Orb is on Manitons right now. But basically, Misfits is able to take this fight. They're pushing the payload. They don't have to deal with Soldier being up on this high ground here. And they still have, like, their full team, essentially, because Zupe is able to contribute to the fight. Sure, they don't actually win this fight. They get it snowballed back on them. But Gigantti, in order to stop the momentum in this fight, I do believe has to use, like, actually all of their ultimates. They use Attack Visor, they use Graviton Surge, and Misfits get so much control of the map from here on. And I don't want to say that mistake cost Gigantti the map. There are certainly things that they could have done besides that, right? There's still, there's still the last section of the map that is, and they are able to get a hold outside of the door here, so there has a chance that they're able to, kill more time. But in the end, Misfits is able to complete the map. It's close, but they are able to complete it. And if Gigantti didn't make that mistake, if they were there that quarter second earlier, it could have been enough to actually prevent Misfits from finishing the map, and then maybe they would have won the series a little bit faster.